Hare Krishna, everyone. Welcome back to the daily readings of Srila Prabhupada's books. This is where it's happening, right here in Radha Lane, Houston, Texas. And the devotees who were hearing and chanting together when I was here last are back in the room. We almost are running out of space already, and it's only the first day, second day, so let's see what happens. We're right next to Sri Sri Radha Nilamadhava's wonderful temple, beautiful deities. I remember when Tamal Krishna Maharaj got these designed and had conceived of it, they were like going to be the biggest deities in the world. I don't know if they're the biggest deities in the world, but there's, hey, Hari Bol, Hare Krishna. Well, look who's here. Just stopping in for a visit, right? Before you go, careening off into the sunset. Hare Krishna. Hari Bol Krishna Kripa. Hari Bol Guru Priya. Hari Bol. Jai. And so here we are again. In our constitutional position to hear the Srimad-Bhagavatam straight from Srila Prabhupada every day. And it's working out for us and for a lot of other people. We're up to now 1,170 followers of this reading. Yeah. And I'm getting reports that it's starting to get traction in different places of the world. Yeah. So we're pretty happy about that. As a matter of fact, I don't think I can actually express how happy I am about that. So, okay. Let's hear from Sanatana Goswami, shall we? As we do every day, and to indoctrinate us into what we're doing, what we're hearing. Sanatana Goswami will explain to us. Srimad-Bhagavatam Mahima Stotram. It goes like this. Sarva Shastabdipi Yusha Sarva Vedaika Satpala Sarva Siddhanta Ratnaja Sarva Lokaika Drikpradam. O nectar from the ocean of all scriptures, singular fruit of all the Vedas, rich mine of the precious gems of all conclusive truths, you are the only giver of sight to all the worlds. Sarva Bhagavata Prana Srimad Bhagavata Prabho Kalidwandoditaditya Sri Krishna Parivartita. O life air of all the Supreme Lord's devotees, O Master Srimad Bhagavatam, you are the sun risen in the darkness of Kali. You are the exact image of Sri Krishna. Paramananda Pataya Prema Varshakshadayate Sarvada Sarvasevyaya Sri Krishnaya Namostume. I bow down to you who are supremely blissful to read. Your every syllable pours down a flood of prema. You can always be served by everyone. You are Sri Krishna himself. Marika Bando Matsangin Madno Madgamadana Manishtadagamad Bhagya Mad Anandanamostute. My only friend, my constant companion, my spiritual master, my great wealth, my savior, my good fortune, my source of ecstasy, I bow down to you. Asadu sadutadayin ati nichochatakara hanamunchagadachin mam premnarit ganda. Unsaintly, O exalter of the most fallen, please never leave me. Always appear in my heart and my voice with pure love. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. 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 Okay, here we are. Fasten your seatbelts. Third canto, chapter 31, starting with text 40. Kapila Dev the Supreme Personality of Godhead is instructing, guess who? His mother. The Mother of God is being instructed by God. The woman, created by the Lord, is the representation of Maya, and one who associates with such Maya by accepting services must certainly know that this is the way of death, just like a blind well covered with grass. Purport. Sometimes it happens that a rejected well is covered by grass, and an unwary traveler who does not know of the existence of the well falls down, and his death is assured. Similarly, association with a woman begins when one accepts service from her, because woman is especially created by the Lord to give service to man. By accepting her service, a man is entrapped, if he is not intelligent enough to know that she is the gateway to hellish life. He may indulge in her association very liberally. This is restricted for those who aspire to ascend to the transcendental platform. Even 50 years ago in Hindu society, such association was restricted. A wife could not see her husband during the daytime. Householders even had different residential quarters. The internal quarters of a residential house were for the woman, and the external quarters were for the man. Acceptance of service rendered by a woman may appear very pleasing, but one should be very cautious in accepting such service, because it is clearly said that woman is the gateway to death or forgetfulness of oneself. She blocks the path of spiritual realization. Text 41. Make notes now and ask questions, because we want to talk about this subject. It's a very, very deep and big subject, and to understand it properly and still give proper respect, and proper mental attitude is very important now in human society, considering what's going on. Okay? Text 41. A living entity who is the result of attachment to a woman in his previous life has been endowed with the form of a woman, foolishly looks upon Maya in the form of a man, her husband, as the bestower of wealth, progeny, house, and other material assets. So it's a two-way street. As Mayapur Shashi Prabhu, who I hope is listening to this reading, he brought up the point that can't we see it both sides, because it seems like it's just, aiming at the woman being Maya, and isn't it two-sided? It is. From this verse we can see, so I hope he gets his mind pacified. Purport. From this verse it appears that a woman who is also supposed to have been a man in her previous life, and due to his attachment to his wife, he now has the body of a woman. Bhagavad Gita confirms this. A man gets his next life's birth according to what he thinks at the time of death. If someone is too attached to his wife, naturally he thinks of his wife at the time of death, and in his next life he takes the body of a woman. Similarly, if a woman thinks of her husband at the time of death, naturally she gets the body of a man in the next life. In the Hindu scriptures, therefore, woman's chastity and devotion to men is greatly emphasized. A woman's attachment to her husband may elevate her to the body of a man in her next life, but a man's attachment to a woman will degrade him, and in his next life he will take the body of a woman. We should always remember, as it is stated in Bhagavad Gita, that both the gross and subtle material bodies are dresses. They are the shirt and coat of a living entity. To be either a woman, listen to this is very important, Haribol. This is very important. To be either a woman or a man only involves one's bodily dress. The soul in nature is actually the marginal energy of the Supreme Lord. Every living entity, being classified as energy, is supposed to be originally a woman, or one who was enjoyed. In the body of a man, there is a greater opportunity to get out of the material clutches. There is less opportunity in the body of a woman. In this verse, it is indicated that the body of a man should not be misused through forming an attachment to women and thus becoming too entangled in material enjoyment, which will result in getting the body of a woman in the next life. A woman is generally fond of household prosperity, ornaments, furniture, and dresses. She is satisfied when the husband supplies all these things sufficiently. The relationship between man and woman is very complicated, in case you didn't notice. But the substance is that one who aspires to ascend to the transcendental stage of spiritual realization should be very careful in accepting the association of a woman. In the stage of Krishna consciousness, however, such restriction of association may be slackened, because if a man's and woman's attachment is not to each other but to Krishna, then both of them are equally eligible to get out of material entanglement and reach the abode of Krishna. Shall I repeat that again? Just in case you didn't get it? Because I know that now even devotees read this first sentence of this purport, or this woman is Maya, and then they go, okay, I'm out of here. And they won't take the trouble. And that's the way it is now. Everyone's just knee-jerking at every moment, and if it's not what I want to hear, then they're out, and they don't read the books all the way through carefully and get balanced. But the real thing is this: we don't belong here. And as attached you may become, whether you're a man or a woman, or a dog or a cat, or sometimes now they get so attached to their animals, more than their kids, they leave their wealth to their animals. Did you know that happens? No. Right down the street you got a country club for animals. No. Just right down the street. So this is Maya. And now we have this whole phenomenon that when the people come out, the human being comes out, they look around and they say, am I a man or am I a woman? And their subtle bodies are so confused because they've been going back and forth between man and woman, human body, so many times that their subtle bodies, which are with them all through their journey in this material world, and it contains all the memories of the lives that we've had in this material world, it becomes confused. This is the actual explanation that Prabhupada gave us for all this tendency now to have gay marriages and people getting attached to the same sex and wanting to change their gender. And I don't know if you know how far this has gone, but in one of the Scandinavian countries, I'm not sure which one, there's a law passed that before 7 years old, the person is allowed to choose his gender, and the parents, it's against the law for the parents to prevent it. That's where it's going. So, although it seems maybe, because we're Americans, free, land of the home and free of the brave, and anything goes, and if you're not giving anybody a chance to do anything, then there's something wrong, and I'm being restricted. But the regulative principles of Krishna consciousness for man and woman in the Vedic culture are called, in the Gita, Ragadvesha Vimuktais-tu Vishayan Indriyascharan Atmavashar Vedayatma. Prabhupada translates this Atmavashar Vedayatma as the regulative principles of freedom. So it may restrict us to act like a woman or a man, and whatever, but it doesn't restrict us internally. It allows us to be able to think of Krishna and think of ourselves as servants of Krishna, instead of being just this bag of bones and unmentionables. So here's the conclusion of Prabhupada. The relationship between man and woman is very complicated, but the substance is that one who aspires to ascend to the transcendental stage of spiritual realization should be very careful in accepting the association of a woman. In the stage of Krishna consciousness, however, such restriction of association may be slackened, because if a man's and woman's attachment is not to each other but to Krishna, then both of them are equally eligible to get out of the material entanglement and reach the abode of Krishna. As it is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, anyone who seriously takes to Krishna consciousness, whether in the lowest species of life, or a woman or less intelligent classes, such as the mercantile or laborer class, will go back home, back to Godhead, and reach the abode of Krishna. A man should not be attached to a woman, nor should a woman be attached to a man. Both man and woman should be attached to the service of the Lord. Then there is the possibility of liberation from material entanglement for both of them. Text 42. A woman, therefore, should consider her husband, her house, and her children to be the arrangement of the external energy of the Lord for her death, just as the sweet singing of the hunter is death for the deer. Purport. In these instructions of Lord Kapila Deva, it is explained that not only is woman the gateway to hell for man, but man is also the gateway to hell for woman. That's for Mayapur Shashi. It was put there just for you. I hope you're watching. If you're not watching live, I hope you listen to it sometime, because he's in Taiwan now, so he may not be able to listen live. He brought up this point last night. It is a question of attachment. A man becomes attached to a woman because of her service, her beauty, and many other assets. And similarly, a woman becomes attached to a man for his giving her a nice place to live, ornaments, dress, and children. It is a question of attachment for one another. As long as either is attached to the other for such material enjoyment, the woman is dangerous for the man, and the man is also dangerous for the woman. But if the attachment is transferred to Krishna, both of them become Krishna conscious. And then marriage is very nice. We'll read this again for those of you who are not quite in spiritual consciousness. As long as either is attached to the other for such material enjoyment, the woman is dangerous for the man, and the man is dangerous for the woman. But if the attachment is transferred to Krishna, both of them become Krishna conscious. And then marriage is very nice. Srila Rupa Goswami therefore recommends anasaktasya vishayan yatarham upayunjataha nirbandha krishna sambandhe yuktam vairagyam uchate. This is Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 1-255. We're called Rupanugas. This is Rupa Goswami speaking. Man and woman should live together as householders in relationship with Krishna, only for the purpose of discharging duties in the service of Krishna. Engage the children, engage the wife, and engage the husband, all in Krishna conscious duties. Well, Hare Krishna, Haribol, please come in. There's a chair here in case you want it. But Sam's got his name on it, so when he gets a little restless on the floor, he may want to jump over there. Man and woman should live together as householders in relationship with Krishna, only for the purpose of discharging duties in the service of Krishna. Engage the children, engage the wife, and engage the husband, all in Krishna conscious duties, and then all these bodily or material attachments will disappear. Since the via medium is Krishna, the consciousness is pure, and there's no possibility of degradation at any time. Text 43. Due to his particular type of body, the materialistic living entity wanders from one planet to another, following fruitive activities. In this way, he involves himself in fruitive activities and enjoys the result incessantly. Happy New Year. This is New Year's Day. It's like a new beginning, right? To hear this gives us a possibility of having an actual, proper New Year's resolutions. How to think, how to be. Purport. When the living entity is encaged in the material body, he is called Jiva Bhuta. And when he is free from the material body, he is called Brahma Bhuta. By changing his material body birth after birth, he travels not only in the different species of life, but also from one planet to another. Lord Chaitanya says that the living entities, bound up by fruitive activities, are wandering in this way throughout the whole universe. And if by some chance or by pious activities they get in touch with a bona fide spiritual master, by the grace of Krishna, then they get the seed of devotional service. After getting this seed, if one sows it within his heart and pours water on it by hearing and chanting. Shall I read that again? Lord Chaitanya says that if the living entities, bound up by fruitive activities, are wandering in this way throughout the universe, and if by some chance or by pious activities they get in touch with a bona fide spiritual master, by the grace of Krishna, then they get the seed of devotional service. After getting this seed, if one sows it within his heart and pours water on it by hearing and chanting, the seed grows into a big plant. And there are fruits and flowers which the living entity can enjoy, even in this material world. That is called the Brahma Bhuta stage. In his designated condition, a living entity is called materialistic, and upon being freed from all designations, when he is fully Krishna conscious, engaged in devotional service, he is called liberated. Unless one gets the opportunity to associate with the bona fide spiritual master by the grace of the Lord, there is no possibility of one's liberation from the cycle of birth and death in the different species of life and through the different grades of planets. Text 44. In this way, the living entity gets a suitable body with a material mind and senses according to his fruitive activities. When the reaction of his particular activity comes to an end, that end is called death. And when a particular type of reaction begins, that beginning is called birth. Purport. From time immemorial, the living entity travels in the different species of life and the different planets almost perpetually. This process is explained in Bhagavad Gita. Brahmayan sarvabhutani yantranudani mayaya. Under the spell of Maya, everyone is wandering throughout the universe on the carriage of the body offered by the material energy. Materialistic life involves a series of actions and reactions. It is a long film, spool of actions and reactions. And one lifespan is just a flash in such a reactionary show. When a child is born, it is to be understood that his particular type of body is the beginning of another set of activities. And when an old man dies, it is to be understood that one set of reactionary activities is finished. We can see that because of different reactionary activities, one man is born in a rich family and another is born in a poor family, although both of them are born in the same place, at the same moment, and in the same atmosphere. One who is carrying pious activity with him is given a chance to take his birth in a rich or pious family, and one who is carrying impious activity is given a chance to take birth in a lower, poor family. The change of body means a change to a different field of activities. Similarly, When the body of the boy changes into that of a youth, the boyish activities change into youthful activities. It is clear that a particular body is given to the living entity for a particular type of activity. This process is going on perpetually, from a time which is impossible to trace out. Vaishnava poets say, therefore, anadi karma pale, which means that these actions and reactions of one's activity cannot be traced, for they may even continue from the last millennium of Brahma's birth to the next millennium. That's 311 trillion years. And then devotees who get into this issue, where we came from, when, how, they become completely bewildered because you can't understand it from this position. And if you ever try to work something out that's not possible to work out, what happens? Your life becomes more and more complicated, more and more troublesome. We have seen the example in the life of Narada Muni. In one millennium, he was the son of a maidservant, and in the next millennium, he became a great sage. Text 45, 46. When the eyes lose their power to see color or form due to morbid affliction of the optic nerve, the sense of sight becomes deadened. The living entity who is the seer of both the eyes and the sight loses his power of vision. In the same way, when the physical body, the place where perception of objects occurs, is rendered incapable of perceiving, that is known as death. When one begins to view the physical body as one's very self, that is called birth. Purport. When one says, I see, this means that he sees with his eyes or with his spectacles. He sees with the instrument of sight. If the instrument of sight is broken or becomes diseased or incapable of acting, then he as the seer also ceases to act. Similarly, in this material body, at the present moment, the living soul is acting, and when the material body, due to its incapability to function, ceases, he also ceases to perform his reactionary activities. When one's instrument of action is broken and cannot function, that is called death. Again, when one gets a new instrument for action, that is called birth. This process of birth and death is going on at every moment by constant bodily change. I want to add this, and it's happening so fast and so imperceptible that we don't even notice. Therefore, we're not thinking in a normal consciousness without hearing these literatures that we actually have a different body at every moment. But that's what's happening. Again, when one gets a new instrument for action, that is called birth. This process of birth and death is going on at every moment by constant bodily change. The final change is called death, and acceptance of a new body is called birth. That is the solution to the question of birth and death. Actually, the living entity has neither birth nor death, but is eternal. As confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, Nahanyate hanyamane sharire. The living entity never dies, even after the death or annihilation of this material body. And that knowledge is freedom from fear. Because the predominant quality of the material world is fear, because we don't know what's going to happen, especially at the time of death. But even during life, we don't know what's going to happen. And when the reactions to our sinful activities in this material world, especially the human beings, because they're the only ones that can do sinful activities, the animals and the plants, they don't have anything to do with ruining the earth. It's just us humans. Big issue right now. Text 47. Therefore, one should not view death with horror, nor have recourse to defining the body as soul, nor give way to exaggeration in enjoying the bodily necessities of life. Realizing the true nature of the living entity, one should move about in the world free from attachment and steadfast in purpose. What a verse. Huh? Isn't it? Tasman nakaryak santraso nakarpanyam nasamramaha budva jivagatim diro muktasangas charet iha. Therefore, one should not view death with horror, nor have recourse to defining the body as soul, nor give way to exaggeration in enjoying the bodily necessities of life. Realizing the true nature of the living entity, one should move about in the world free from attachment and steadfast in purpose. Purport. A sane person who has understood the philosophy of life and death is very upset upon hearing of the horrible hellish condition of life in the womb of the mother or outside of the mother. But one has to make a solution to the problems of life. A sane man should understand the miserable conditions of this material body. Without being unnecessarily upset, he should try to find out if there is a remedy. The remedial measures can be understood when one associates with persons who are liberated. It must be understood who is actually liberated. The liberated person is described in Bhagavad Gita, one who engages in uninterrupted devotional service to the Lord, having surpassed the stringent laws of material nature, is understood to be situated in Brahman. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is beyond the material creation. It is admitted even by impersonalists like Shankaracharya that Narayana is transcendental to this material creation. As such, when one actually engages in the service of the Lord in various forms, either Narayana or Radha Krishna or Sita Rama, he is understood to be on the platform of liberation. The Bhagavatam also confirms that liberation means to be situated in one's constitutional position. Since a living entity is eternally the servitor of the Supreme Lord, when one seriously and sincerely engages in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, he is situated in the position of liberation. One should try to associate with a liberated person, and then the problems of life, namely birth and death, can be solved. While discharging devotional service in full Krishna consciousness, one should not be miserly. He should not unnecessarily show that he has renounced this world. Actually, renunciation is not possible. If one renounces his palatial building and goes to a forest, there is actually no renunciation, for the palatial building is the property of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the forest is also the property of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Renunciation necessitates renouncing the false understanding that one can lord it over material nature. When one renounces this false attitude and renounces the puffed up position that he is also God, that is real renunciation. Otherwise, there is no meaning of renunciation. Rupa Goswami advises that if one renounces anything which could be applied in the service of the Lord and does not use it for that purpose, that is called Falgu Vairagya, insufficient or false renunciation. Everything belongs to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, everything can be engaged in the service of the Lord. Nothing should be used for one's sense gratification. That is real renunciation. Nor should one unnecessarily increase the necessities of the body. We should be satisfied with whatever is offered and supplied by Krishna without much personal endeavor. We should spend our time executing devotional service in Krishna consciousness. That is the solution to the problem of life and death. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. What a purport. What a purport. Text 48. Endowed with right vision and strengthened by devotional service and a pessimistic attitude towards material identity, one should relegate his body to this illusory world through his reason. Thus one can be unconcerned with this material world. This is an extremely important verse. Let's read the Sanskrit. Samyag darshaniya buddhya yoga vairagya yuktaya maya vidachite loke charanyasya kalevaram. This is Ekadasi, January 1st, New Year's. Pretty auspicious time to hear this. This verse. Endowed with right vision and strengthened by devotional service and a pessimistic attitude towards material identity, one should relegate his body to this illusory world through his reason. Thus one can be unconcerned with this material world. In other words, we don't have to give it up. We have to give up the attachment to it. Purport. It is sometimes misunderstood that if one has to associate with persons engaged in devotional service, he will not be able to solve the economic problem. To answer this argument, it is described here that one has to associate with liberated persons, not directly, physically, but by understanding, through philosophy and logic, the problems of life. It is stated here, samyag darshaniya buddhya. One has to see perfectly, and by intelligence and yoga practice, one has to renounce this world. That renunciation can be achieved by the process recommended in the second chapter of the first canto of Srimad-Bhagavatam. The devotee's intelligence is always in touch with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. His attitude towards the material existence is one of detachment, for he knows perfectly well that this material world is a creation of illusory energy. Realizing himself to be part and parcel of the Supreme Soul, the devotee discharges his devotional service and is completely aloof from material action and reaction. Thus, at the end, he gives up his material body, or the material energy, and as pure soul, he enters the kingdom of God. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the third canto, 31st chapter of Srimad-Bhagavatam, entitled Lord Kapila Dev's Instructions on the Movements of Living Entities, by the way, to his mother. Okay, we're going to push on here. We got a few more minutes. Maybe we should stop there and let's see. Such a nice Hare Krishna, Hare Bol Sangam. Chapter 32. Entanglement in fruitive activities. Text 1. The personality of Godhead said, the person who lives in the center of household life derives material benefits by performing religious rituals, and thereby he fulfills his desire for economic development and sense gratification. Again and again, he acts the same way. Purport. There are two kinds of householders. One is called the Grihamedi, and the other is called the Grihasta. The objective of the Grihamedi is sense gratification, and the objective of the Grihasta is self-realization. Here the Lord is speaking about the Grihamedi, or the person who wants to remain in this material world. His activity is to enjoy material benefits by performing religious rituals for economic development, and thereby ultimately satisfy the senses. He does not want anything more. Such a person works very hard throughout his life to become very rich and eat very nicely and drink. By giving some charity for pious activity, he can go to a higher planetary atmosphere in the heavenly planets in his next life, but he does not want to stop the repetition of birth and death and finish with the concomitant miserable factors of material existence. Such a person is called a Grihamedi. A Grihasta is a person who lives with family, wife, children, and relatives, but has no attachment for them. He prefers to live in family life rather than as a mendicant or sannyasi, but his chief aim is to achieve self-realization or to come to the standard of Krishna consciousness. Here, however, Lord Kapila Deva is speaking about the Grihamedis, who have made their aim the materialistically prosperous life, which they achieve by sacrificial ceremonies, by charities, and by good work. They are posted in good positions, and since they know that they are using up their assets of pious activities, they again and again perform activities of sense gratification. It is said by Prahlad Maharaj, Punat Punas Charviti Charvananam. They prefer to chew the already chewed. Again and again they experience the material pangs, even if they are rich and prosperous, but they do not want to give up this kind of life. Text 2. Such persons are bereft of devotional service due to being too attached to sense gratification. And therefore, although they perform various kinds of sacrifices and take great vows to satisfy the demigods and forefathers, they are not interested in Krishna consciousness, devotional service. Purport. In Bhagavad Gita 7.20, it is said that persons who worship demigods have lost their intelligence. Kamaistai rityajnana. They are much attached. Swechadip is leaving. Hare Krishna. Hare Bol. See you tomorrow or as soon as possible, whichever comes first. Start this purport again. In Bhagavad Gita 7.20, it is said that persons who worship demigods have lost their intelligence. Kamais, taistar, rityajnana. They are much attracted to sense gratification and therefore they worship the demigods. It is of course recommended in the Vedic scriptures that if one wants money, health, or education, then he should worship the various demigods. A materialistic person has manifold demands, and thus there are manifold demigods to satisfy his senses. The Grihamedis, who want to continue a prosperous, materialistic way of life, generally worship the demigods or the forefathers by offering pinda, or respectful oblations. Such persons are bereft of Krishna consciousness and are not interested in devotional service to the Lord. This kind of so-called pious and religious man is the result of impersonalism. The impersonalists maintain that the impersonalists maintain, where did I go? I pushed the wrong button again, darn it, wait a second. The impersonalists maintain that the Supreme Absolute Truth has no form, and that one can imagine any form he likes for his benefit and worship in that way. Therefore, the Grihamatis, or materialistic men, say that they can worship any form of a demigod as worship of the Supreme Lord. Especially amongst the Hindus, those who are meat-eaters prefer to worship goddess Kali because it is prescribed that one can sacrifice a goat before that goddess. They maintain that whether one worships the goddess Kali or the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu, or any demigod, the destination is the same. This is first-class rascaldom. And such people are misled. But they prefer, let me see. Sorry. But they prefer this philosophy. Bhagavad Gita does not accept such rascaldom, and it is clearly stated that such methods are meant for persons who have lost their intelligence. Meaning, one who has lost his sense or is infatuated by the lust and attraction of sense gratification is used. Kama mudhas are bereft of Krishna consciousness and devotional service and are infatuated by a strong desire for sense gratification. The worshippers of demigods are condemned both in Bhagavad Gita and in Srimad-Bhagavatam. So we'll stop here. The reading for tonight. Lots of food for thought. My reflection was that this idea of being pessimistic about material life, if one doesn't have a spiritual conception of life, seems to make everything fatalistic and bad and dark, and therefore they don't like us in our philosophy because, oh no, you guys are always they're always negative. You're always negative. Now we have the answer why. Because they want sense gratification. They want to go to a higher planet. They want to enjoy more sense gratification. And that's all they're interested in. So if you're pessimistic about material life, because you have a spiritual conception, and you know that the goal of life is actually spiritual, and that you cannot enjoy your senses here in this material world forever, they think that you're crazy. Okay, go ahead.
I was going to say...
We're passing this around now. We'll talk, because it makes it easier for people to understand.
I was going to say that before coming here, being pessimistic about materialistic life, but having no understanding of real spiritual knowledge was extremely difficult, because I wanted to be positive, but it was hard with seeing the way everybody was acting. And I've heard this from a lot of people who are new. They say that they know deep down that everybody has this pure nature, but it's hard to act in a way where that other person has to take recognition of their actions, but also that person having the understanding of how to treat them or how to, and I agree with that fully. So
nice reflection. Hannah. Hare Krishna. She's been around for a few births. You can't just speak like that, think like that, unless you've been around for a few births. It's the proof of the pudding. Proof of the pudding is in the eating. The proof of the pudding is how we respond to these kinds of thoughts. This is heavy stuff, The actual situation of material man and material woman Very heavy stuff. And unless we, yes, Krishna Kripa. See if you can get close to it.
I was really appreciating how you were saying if we don't read carefully and thoughtfully in the understanding that what we're reading is true and factual, then with faith, yes, then we will only draw a wrong conclusion. And if we don't understand it, read it again or go further and come back to it, but not draw a conclusion if you don't actually understand it.
Very nice, very important. And I would like to quote from Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami to further give weight to what you just said, to confirm it. He says, if you can hear these books with faith and love and without argument, then you get love of God immediately. You don't have to wait. You don't have to go through lifetimes and lifetimes. You don't have to go through a whole lifetime of struggle. If you just learn the art or come to the point of evolution in your consciousness, whereby you can hear this sound vibration with love and faith, with faith first of all, love, and without argument. Because that's the hard part, without argument. Because the material mind is always trying to figure out a way out of it. Well, yeah, but I thought, well, no, I heard another thing, but then, and on it goes, the mind. And therefore, while those things are going on in the mind, the answers are coming, one after the other. But your mind's going, yes, but I remember I heard something else. Yeah, that wasn't exactly the same, but then, and in the meantime, the answer's coming, and you're not getting it. That's the effect of false arguments. Yes, Hannah.
We have a question from cyberspace from Jayashree. This is in quotations. In the stage of Krishna consciousness, if a man's and woman's attachment is not to each other but to Krishna, then both of them are equally eligible to get out of material entanglement and reach the abode of Krishna. 331.41 purport. Can we say that as a Vaishnava we can transcend the gender, as we do not identify with the bodily concept, but still we have to observe the etiquette of not mixing freely between opposite sexes, which is quite common even among devotees nowadays? Your servant, Jayashree.
I have one word about that. Precisely. Precisely. Correct. These things apply both to devotees and non-devotees. They apply to everyone. This is transcendental truth. Yes, we have to live like anashita karma palam, karyam karma karotiya, sasanyasi yogi cha, niragni nachakriya. Do we have a Gita? Yes. Krishna, in two places, Krishna very nicely, in two places, Krishna very nicely defines renunciation for all of us. And it also, we already heard it in the purports that Jayashree was talking about. That is that whether we're man or woman in this world, if we act as if we're devotees of Krishna, even if we're married with children and family, then our vision changes, our attitude changes. We are being kept in this material world by material conceptions in our subtle body. As long as our material conceptions are there, prominent and strong, then that material conception will take us to another body, and we have to, as was so clearly described by Kapila and Prabhupada in the purports, we have to keep coming back, another body, and because the nature of time causes us to forget, and the nature of the cycle of time tends to take us down. By the time we get to the place we are now, the Kali Yuga, it's very difficult. So, Anashita Karma Palam, in the beginning of the 6th chapter, Krishna defines renunciation. He says, the Supreme Personality of Godhead said, one who is unattached to the fruits of his work and who works as he is obligated is in the renounced order of life. That means you can be a grihasta and be in the renounced order of life. And he is a true mystic, not he who lights no fire and performs no duty. So it's not that you can just renounce activities, as some impersonalists do, and get perfection. It's more intelligent and better to stay as a grihasta and become detached. And in the 18th chapter, Krishna then ties it all up with this verse. He says, sorry. Sanyasyasya Mahabaho. This is Arjuna asking the question. Arjuna said, O mighty armed one, I wish to understand the purpose of renunciation, tyaga, and of the renounced order of life, sannyas, O killer of the Kesha demon, master of the senses. And then Krishna answers, the Supreme Personality of Godhead said, the giving up of activities that are based on material desire is what great learned men call the renounced order of life, sannyas. And giving up the results of all activities is what the wise call renunciation. So in the purports, Prabhupada, that we just read, Prabhupada points out that if a person renounces the house and goes to the forest and thinks that he's a renunciate, he's not really a renunciate, because neither the house nor the forest belongs to him. Like somebody goes into the Bank of America and announces, I renounce all this money. As if it belonged to him. Nothing belongs to us. Everything belongs to Krishna, even our wife and kids and facilities for doing whatever we do. So if we keep that in mind when we're living our life and do our duty, rather than trying to avoid the duty, and Prabhupada, Krishna defines this as renunciation and passion. If you renounce because it's difficult and you want to just get out of the difficulty, then that's weak renunciation. It won't last. If you renounce out of fear, then that's ignorance. If you renounce out of difficulty, that's passion. If you renounce out of duty without attachment, that's goodness. But in either case, in any case, you're forced to renounce. Because you can't keep anything. Nothing belongs to us. Period. Hare Krishna. Sam, you got, I can see it in your eyes. Wait. Speak into this.
In what part of the planet are there more Krishnas? In what part of the world are there more Krishnas, percentage-wise?
That's a good question.
Also, the reason why I do ask this question, in addition, does it make it more difficult for Krishnas in the Western culture than in those parts of the world where there's more Krishnas in percentage due to the fact of the media?
Well, it's not due to the fact that media.
The material advertisements.
It's a good.
That has psychological effects. Are they more happy, or is it more difficult?
Good question.
Thank you.
Wonderful question. It's relative. Now it's changing everywhere. It's relative. But in general, the biggest percentage of people who are Christian conscious is in India.
Okay.
But there's also, Prabhupada came to the West and developed this society, the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. And therefore, if you check out this room, you'll see a lot of different personalities from a lot of different backgrounds, a lot of different nations, a lot of different, social stature, ages, groups. And when we all get together like this, then it's very conducive to Krishna consciousness. But yes, and it's not just in the West now, it's everywhere. That advertisement you're talking about, the media that are promoting something completely opposite to spiritual life, it makes it hard everywhere. But still, when the culture surrounding it is supportive, it's easier. So it is easier in spiritual culture. Have you been to India yet?
No.
Oh, that's what you should do. Take a trip. You should take a trip to India, and then it'll get under your skin, get in your blood. Because when you're in a spiritual culture, there are things about India that sometimes causes Western people to think negative thoughts because it's not as clean and neat and, anyway, there's many, many reasons.
Is it a big factor for high percentage rates in America and the Western culture for suicide?
I think it's relative to each culture and each, it's relative. You can't make an East and West, comparison.
Okay.
Those kinds of
studies of reasons why human
yeah
would want to commit physical suicide.
yeah. There's one study made in Sweden where at some parts of the year they don't see the sun for long periods of time. That tends to bring, because the sun is very important for the mind, to keep the mind fresh and keep the mind purified. So,
Vitamin D?
well, it's not vitamin.
Okay.
Vitamin, the
Right.
subtle body is a little beyond vitamins, and the spiritual body is beyond the subtle body. But anyway, those things cloud the original spiritual body, the spiritual intelligence, the spiritual mind. It mentioned it just fleetingly in one purport. It talked about it, and that is that the soul, when the sight is lost because of some disease in the optic nerve, the soul loses its ability to see. But it's the soul that's losing its ability to see. The body doesn't have the ability to see in the first place, because the material elements are inert. The chemicals are inert. Every material element is inert. It's not conscious. So the materialist scientists and philosophers, they're trying to make up a philosophy that if I just combine the chemicals in a right way, then the consciousness will come. And then when it comes time for them to put consciousness back into the body by putting the chemical back in, because they know pretty much what all the chemicals are by now, they can't do it. So now they're in a dilemma. It's called the mind-body problem, or the mystery of consciousness. Until one comes to the realization through the practical application of this philosophy in one's life and can perceive for oneself, it's called pratyaksha vagamam dharmyam, when one can see by one's own realization that one is not the body, but one is actually a spiritual being, separate from the body, and that when we say in any language of the world, this is my microphone, it means the microphone and me are different. So when we say my mind, my body, my intelligence, and in every language of the world we say the same thing. This is truth. This isn't relative. In every language of the world, we acknowledge the difference between ourselves and the material energy, just by the language. My mind, my body, my intelligence. So this is the cause of material existence. When the soul thinks that these things belong to me, and they identify in the Great Depression, when all these big guys in New York lost all that money, they jumped out of windows because they thought, we're lost. They didn't realize, I'm not my money, I'm not lost, it's the money that's lost. So this is the basic philosophy of suicide. When you think that everything belongs to you and it gets taken away from you, then you become lost, or you think you become lost. Hare Krishna. Hare Bo. Hey Rishabh Dev.
Hare Krishna.
Long time no see.
Long time no see.
Hare Krishna. Just come back from Dallas?
Yes.
Nice to see you. And who is this?
I'm Patrick.
Oh, you're Patrick. I heard all about you already. I feel like I've known you for a long time.
Cool.
Hare Krishna is cool. Yeah, it is. You know, so that's the thing. That's the thing. People commit suicide when they identify with the material energy so strongly that when it gets taken away, they think they're lost, and therefore they have nothing to live for. But what they don't know is that the laws of nature cannot be changed by anyone. And if you commit suicide, then in your next body, if you're lucky enough to get one, you know, if the soul rejects the body that the nature is given, then the nature will say, okay, you don't want one of those, so you can't have one now. And then they float around in their subtle body. It's called ghosts. That's what a ghost is. They float around in their subtle body going, wait, but I want to do this and I want it, but they can't because they don't have a gross body. And sometimes, not sometimes, most of the time, they give some kind of trouble because they're always trying to live through others. And if we are ghostly, even when we're in our gross bodies, and we try to live through others rather than live for ourselves, we can also cause trouble to others. And that's one of the biggest sources of trouble. And it's all coming from the bodily concepts of life. It's all coming because we think we're the body. We don't remember, forget what makes something material and spiritual is the remembrance of Krishna, of God. When we remember that the material energy belongs to God, including my body and including the subtle energy of my mind, and we become free from this material conception. And then we can live within the world following the laws of God, and that's what Dharma means. Dharmam tu sakshat bhagavat pranitam. Dharma means the laws of God. And if we follow them, then we are law-abiding citizens. And we don't have to get put into the prison. I'm letting it sink in. Therefore, the secret is to learn how to think for oneself in Krishna consciousness. You can't get Krishna consciousness just by being told what to do and do it. It's part of it. In the beginning, it's very important. But one has to actually learn this philosophy and learn how to apply it in one's own life and in one's own vision of the world and of others and of oneself. And eventually of the spiritual world and the spiritual self. Yes, correct. The connection is in it. That's called yoga. Yoga means to connect, and that's what yoga is. Yoga isn't just to, put the body in like a pretzel and then get a better body so I can have more sex easily. That's not what yoga is.
question from Rati.
One more question from Rati. Hey, Rati. She's in the hall.
Dear Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. You often speak and quote of this mentality of detachment which places one in the renounced order of life, even if not externally. Due to my attachments, I still struggle to understand this. If we are engaged in Krishna service, even in mixed consciousness, meaning if I still want some of it for myself, shouldn't we do our best to produce the best possible results? If we simply renounce the results out of so-called detachment, can this not become an excuse for not giving it our best?
Of course. Anything can be misused, and anything can be used properly. That's the meaning of independence. So Krishna is supremely independent, and we are a very small particle of consciousness. Krishna is the full consciousness, and we are a particle of consciousness. That doesn't mean that if you put all of our consciousness together, you get Krishna. Or Krishna puts all of his consciousness into us, and therefore he doesn't exist anymore. It's not like you tear up a piece of paper and throw it to the wind and there's no more piece of paper. So yes, you can misuse it or you can use it properly, that independence. If you try to get the best result for Krishna and give it to Krishna, then you become liberated. And if you try to get the best result for yourself, then you become entangled. So if you're a mixed devotee, which most people are, especially in the beginning, then you will give something to Krishna and something to yourself, and something to Krishna and something to yourself. But what you're not realizing is, if I give everything to Krishna, then I enjoy fully. The mentality is, if I give everything to Krishna, then there's nothing for me, and I'm not going to enjoy properly, so I got to keep something for myself. But what happens is, I enjoy less. That is Maya. That's illusion. Maya, not that. It's not true that if I give everything to Krishna, because when you give everything to Krishna, it means not to go away to a cave and stop thinking and stop breathing and stop being a person. It's all coming from impersonalism, this illegal thought, this illegitimate thought, this wrong thinking. If we give everything to Krishna but still do our duties in life according to the way Krishna likes it, then we enjoy fully.
You said this earlier. You said regulated principles of freedom.
Yes. Anyway, I hope that clears it up. Yeah, and it's true that if you know better and you still do it, then you suffer more. But even if you don't know better and you do it, you still have to suffer. Like if a small child, throws, a flame in a combustible place, it'll make a fire. And if a person who knows all about the science of fire does it, it'll also make a fire. So ignorance is not excuse. Just because you're ignorant and you don't know better and you do something that's wrong, you still pay for it. It is folly to be wise where ignorance is bliss. Somebody famous said that. Can't remember who. 'Tis folly to be wise where ignorance is bliss. So if you think, if I just don't know better, it's okay, then you're no better than an animal. There is responsibility. Not with knowledge comes responsibility, and therefore, in the human form of life, comes responsibility. Atato Brahma Jigyasa. Atato means now. This is the first aphorism of the Vedanta Sutra. Atato Brahma Jigyasa. Now is the time to inquire about the absolute truth. What does now mean? Human life. It also now means now, but it also means human life, because the animal, the dog, can't read it. You couldn't be human. You couldn't be reading it unless you're a human being. Therefore, tato therefore means now that you're in a human form. Now is the time to inquire about the absolute truth. So just because you're in a mixed situation and you can't do it entirely, Krishna says, sarva karma. What's the verse? What's the beginning of the verse? Sarva karma vimoksha. No. What's the verse? Somebody give me the verse, Krishna. Whether you're free from desire, full of desire. Akarma sarva karma va moksha karma udaradi tivrena bhakti yogina yajante padasham param. So that means Krishna is saying, if you're attached, if you're not attached, if you want to be unattached, whatever stage you're in, you should worship Krishna. So that's the solution, Rati. Even if you still have little, desires for this and that, worship Krishna and keep worshiping Krishna. Because if you do that, it will clean those desires. Because association with Krishna cleans one. But you have to keep yourself in the fire of devotional service. Abhichet sururacharo bhajate mam ananya bhak sadhur eva samantavyak samyak vyavasito hi saha. There Krishna is admitting, abhichet sururacharo. Acharut means suduracha. Duracharo means activity that is bad. Dur means bad. Achara means activity. Durachara. And su durachara. Su means very. Very, very bad. Even if you do something very, very bad, if you keep yourself engaged in devotional service, according to Krishna, he accepts you as a sadhu. And not just a sadhu, but samyak. Samyak means complete. Because if you continue to do that devotional service, then Krishna will purify your heart, and eventually you will be able to do complete devotional service. So don't use it as an excuse just because you're not pure yet to stop doing devotional service or to back off from devotional service. Okay, that's it. Hare Krishna. Happy New Year, everybody. Happy New Year. A new life, a new beginning. Krishna consciousness. And it's so wonderful. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Turn the, and let everybody see. This is for everybody in the audience. There you go. Haribol. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 21 persons in the room. This is the seat of this. We came up to 18 in Folkestone, and Folkestone's out in the middle of nowhere. There's no temple. There's no, they came from London. They came from Folkestone. They came from Canterbury. 18. It's happening. Hare Krishna. Srimad-Bhagavatam ki jai. Happy New Year, and let's everyone come fully Krishna conscious in this life. That's our New Year's resolution. Hear the Srimad-Bhagavatam every day. Learn who you are. Learn what this material world is. And then do it. Hare Krishna. Gaur Premanandi. Hare. See you tomorrow.